Well, we might as well just give everyone a little look at the setup. Anyone on Instagram who wants to see our professional Zoom webinar. You can leave the beer there, that's mine. Oh, there she is. There's our special guest, Leanne.
Hiding the beer.
Rossi, hooking up the Zoom link.
How up there?
Which wasn't mine.
Get in there, mate. Get in there.
Oh,
Let's go for a close up here. Have a look at these legs. Oh, God.
all right,
See
good
that?
start.
How we going here?
In
Oh, look at
terms
this.
of meeting.
If anyone's watching on Facebook and Instagram, we're getting a little double. Have a look here.
That's yours.
Yeah. That's it. Righto. Now we're just getting started here. Instagram fam, we're about to have Leanne Hardinge come in for Toolbox Talk number 3, workplace under construction. So this should be a cracker. How are you going over there?
Where is that?
So we're streaming on 3 platforms here. So we've got Facebook going, we've got Instagram going, we've got Zoom going. We've got 2 computers balanced on a chair. There's 3 milk crates involved, and there's a bookshelf which we had to take all the plants off. We've got a light from the podcast room, an upside down couch in the corner, and this is our first home game for the TradeMutt Toolbox Talk series.
Right behind the box that is the start presentation.
Couple technicals, people.
Slideshow.
It's behind that box there. That box.
Oh, gotcha. Gotcha.
Oh, God.
All right, here we go.
We're
All right,
I
Leanne.
don't want to start.
We're a long
just
way from the
checking.
construction site, so are we zooming? Is Zoom live?
Zoom's live.
Facebook's good. Instagram's good.
Facebook's good. Just hold on 2 seconds. For anyone that is on the Facebook Live that wants to be able to see Leanne's full presentation with slides, etc., just about to put the Zoom link in the comments. So you'll be able to click that and go onto it that way. Okay, we are actually
3 different platforms here. This is a good juggling act, isn't it?
I'm just amazed at the technology.
No, this should be good for everyone joining on Instagram right now. We're just a little slow to get our
right. We're away.
3 platforms up and running, but across Instagram, Facebook, and Zoom, we are bringing you the goods.
Okay. All right, Derek.
You good?
We're on. We're live, and I'm just going to comment the Zoom link.
Zoom link in Facebook comments.
It is in there, and we're going to pin it to the top. All right, Leanne, do your worst.
All right.
Hook in.
So this is TradeMutt Toolbox Talk number 3. We've had some great feedback from the first 2 Toolbox talks so far. We're super pumped to have one of our very, very great friends of TradeMutt, Leanne Hardinge. And now Leanne was a recent guest on our podcast. She's an absolute wealth of knowledge and a good friend of TradeMutt. So we hope you all get a lot out of this 45-minute session. We're going to record it on Zoom. It's going to be available on the YouTube channel probably tomorrow if we get our act together. And have your questions ready because, fire them at Leanne. There's nothing you can't ask her. Hope you enjoy and, have a good one.
Enjoy. Leanne.
Leanne, the stage is yours.
Stage is mine. Hi, everyone. I'm not certain which camera to look at.
This one. This one.
Oh, okay. And there's 3. And the worst thing is I wanted to make this really personal so that I was talking to those people that had taken the time. And now I'm stuck in a corner. So I'm hoping that we'll still be able to work out that I'm going to be giving you genuine, sincere information. I wanted to also to say that if you've got a pen and paper handy, great. If you're someone that's working off an iPhone or off a phone, I should say, because that includes analogs. But if you're working off a phone, then you're going to have to keep your hands ungloved because you're going to need your fingers to count. I'm not going to waste your time. I'm going to talk with gusts of up to 400 words a minute because all of these topics are normally that we're covering tonight are normally individually their own sessions or virtual workshops. But if you've given up your time after work, no matter where you are, then I figure you need to get as much information as possible. Now, don't worry, as I mentioned, that what we're going to do is it's not only being taped, but also we've got the opportunity to, you've got a slide series you can do. We'll give you some free information at the end. What's the saying on our shirts? What is it?
YNWA.
Thank you. You'll never
walk
There
alone.
you go. So what we're also going to do is, for those people that have any questions and answers, just write them down, because at the end of the session, we're going to give time for questions and answers. If we don't get them all answered and you still want them done, we will give the time either tonight for those that can stay or at another time. On top of that, we've also included my best recommended books. So the sessions that we do, every single one of these will have a book associated that I would recommend. Authors from all over the world, but they're books that have never ever sold more than 2 or 3 million. They're world books, and they're also, too, the best bit I like them, all of the books that we're going to recommend are easy to read if you're, not while you're driving, but if you're somewhere and you've got an hour or so, you can go through it very quickly. And also you can get them from op shops, so if someone's a bit short of money, a lot of them are still in print, but you can get older versions of them. And also many of them, because they've sold so many, they're actually available on audio, is it?
Yeah, Audible.
Yeah, Audible. Yeah, thanks. It's really great. I've got this audience behind me because I was really worried I wouldn't have many people to talk to. So I'm pleased to be partnering with TradeMutt, and also to Ed's just coming and doing some minor technicalities with his hat in the. Just wanted to explain that I just want to act as a conduit. I've been working for over 40 years across industries. I know how to dig myself out if I almost roll a 4-wheel drive in the desert. I've been associated with the Pilbara, with many big companies, but across many industries too: social enterprise, private business, government organisations, Aboriginal organisations, and of course in the construction industry, which is often a bit light on women's experience. I do have a heavy rigid licence, so don't think I can actually lift a tyre, but I can bust a gut trying, and I have got a way how you roll the spare into the boot without pulling your stitches or whatever you do. Busting your fourth valve, as my father used to say. With that, I have actually got, I'm a storyteller, if you haven't noticed. For those of you that like structure and order, you'll be pleased to know that the slides actually will follow structure and order. Whether I stick to them will be another thing. So some of the things I'm going to mention, all of them are real. All of them are real stories, and they're all based on real successes and real people. They're also true. I've done a lot of reading, a lot of studying over the years. But for some of you, some of the subjects may be things you've heard before. I'm probably going to tell them a different way, but I do want to say it's like cleaning your teeth. You know, you get pinpricks of disappointment. You get things that are shit that happen in your day. Excuse my swearing. And so just like eating, you still need to clean your teeth. So some of the things you're going to have heard before, but maybe they're presented a different way. Maybe you'll hear them slightly differently this time. And I'd like to go through and just go through the subjects rather than prattle at the front. So topics. We're going to cover the things that we mentioned in the promotion material. So yes, we're going to talk about catastrophic churn. We're going to talk about, are you a square peg? Are you the right match in your job? About culture in an organisation, how you can actually better manage the workplace culture in relation to your own stress and the impact on you. And I am aware that there are people here that are individuals that are also leaders, and as passions and profits in our logo says, whether you're a leader of one or whether you're a leader of leaders, in every single case, it's still the same pressures but impact you in different ways. So I'll endeavour to assist you in alleviating some of that pressure. If you can just write your questions down, in most cases, we're probably going to answer them during the presentation. Otherwise, we've got someone besides on cameras, we've got someone here that's working with accumulating the questions, and I'll try and give some general answers. Also to remember, I'm going to try and answer, and when I think of an answer, I'm maybe thinking of 1 or 2 industries, but you know, just see how you can adapt it to yours. And there's probably some specific answers you need, put them at the end. So there's lots to share and cover, and whether you're renovating, rebuilding, or starting from scratch in relation to culture in your organisation, here's some information for you. So recognition. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through a process where we're going to go through understanding the topic just very quickly. We're going to go through self-care. We're going to go through communications, and we're going to take action is going to be last. So one of the things that I want to talk about is that we're going to not be like a seagull, you know, fly in, squawk, pinch your chips, and go off again. The idea is that we stick with you and we give you lots of resources afterwards and follow on. So if you can keep up, if you can't, don't worry, you can always replay it. There's a joy to my thought. You're all going to be replaying me stumbling through things.
Worst things have happened, Leanne.
So let's start with workplace culture. So it's a pretty fancy definition, but if I just basically say to you that basically culture is about, it's this replaying here going on in the room. Culture is about, the workplace is supposed to be a great place for us to grow and learn. It's supposed to be a great place for us to thrive. So basically we're a house plant that's a bit more complicated. So what we want to do is talk about what culture means. So that could be language, it could be people's attitudes, it could be their values, it could be whether you swear at work. It's a whole lot of things. So one of the things about culture is that you can have culture and you say, this is the way we do things. That's actually the tip of the iceberg. So lots of organisations, whether they're small or big, have different ways that they say they do things. They've got the policy and procedures, got a great presentation, everybody's in a uniform, but then underneath the water is a whole lot of other things. So you can read them there. For those on an iPhone, it might be a bit harder. On a phone, it might be a bit harder. But there's different things that impact in an organisation that really are the way that things are really done, regardless of what says in the policy and procedures or the marketing material. And many of them you may have heard before. You know, does your organisation allow swearing? Don't sit in that chair because that's the boss's chair, or don't use that cup because that's their particular person's spot or cup, or look, we don't do that, mate. Or what about when you come into a new organisation and someone says to you, well, you know, I hope you're not going to be one of those whingers. You've got a sense of humour. You know, if we're ribbing and joking with you, I hope you're not going to be one of those people. So it's the underneath culture that actually impacts on you. And they're the things that aren't always obvious. Now, these are like pinpricks that if you're different from an organisation's culture, which may be different from the ad, or you're different from the circumstances, from your own personal needs and your own personal natural preferences, they're like mini pinpricks, which can create pressure. So if we go on to the next section, one of the things is, I'm going to go through this with you. So remember before I said this is going to be interactive. There's no way that you can go off to La La Land while this PowerPoint presentation's on, because I'm going to need some responses. So, and it's all about you. So one of the things is, if you're working off a phone, this is where your fingers are going to come in place. It'll be a bit interesting. It's going to ask 10 questions. So I don't know how you're going to hold the phone. Think that out. And if you've got a pen and paper, it'll be handy if you do it this way. So what we're going to do is, let's see what your culture's like. I'm just going to run through a couple of questions and I'm going to read them out, but they're going to be on screen too. And what I'd like you to do is to note how many times on your fingers, and if you've had a workplace health and safety accident, you might need to peel your sock off at the moment, how many times you say yes to the question. So I'm going to zap through them. And for those that will see this podcast later on, I'm going to read them off because my eyesight isn't quite that good. So perhaps the first one is more for individuals, but please answer it as a leader, because you in turn will have someone you're accountable to, whether it be someone in the board or the board of management, or you could be a manager in some states, so it's someone you're accountable to. So let me go through the questions. Please just record the times that you say yes. I want you to think about your workplace, and if it's in the last couple of weeks, and if it's happened more than once or twice, then please at least answer yes. Nobody is with you. You could actually be really honest here that maybe at work you're covering up, but let's just see how you go. There's method in my madness, so please come through. Please follow. So yes or no. I'm proud and aligned with the business or organisation's values that you're working with. Yes or no. My employer views leave, break and mental health as actual priorities. My manager or leaders inspire me to be better and reward me for doing so. That's an interesting one to answer. What about I look forward to getting back to work after a holiday? My team communicate openly and freely with great consideration for each other. Yes or no? My colleagues value my opinion even if they disagree. Yes or no? And remember, you're counting the yeses. Requests for assistance, help, training from me are warmly received when you request it from your boss. Our team and leadership work is together, we work together as one. And 9, I have a clear understanding of my role, performance measures and boundaries. Now, no need fudging the answers. And one more, my professional growth is ongoing and rewarding. Okay, so can you note that score down? There were 10 questions there. So how many of those did you get that were yes? If it's below 7, can you just remember the figure? Because if it's below 7, that's an important thing. So let's go on to workplace culture for leaders. Now, a leader may not be somebody that has recognised authority. Some of you have been given extra responsibilities, a crew of people, but you're not recognised with the title of manager or leader, or you're leading a project. So some of these questions may be more appropriate for you. So I'm going to read them out for those that are listening, maybe driving. Please remember just to mark it. I want you to mark once again a yes next to the question. I can expect to have less fun and enjoyment because of my leadership role. Yes or no? When staff make mistakes, is it their fault? Let me read. When staff make mistakes, it's their fault and I report it back to my supervisor. So stress and anxiety come from the job as a manager or supervisor. Yes or no? Do you feel that? The staff need to be watched to prevent mistakes. So how's your feelings? Yes or no? And remember, you're being honest to yourself here. Don't try and do some calculations because you're in the privacy of your own place. And the point of this exercise is you've actually taken the time, so I'm going to try and give you the best value for your money. Question 5. I do additional hours at home just to keep up with the workload. Now, they can be paid or they can be unpaid. They can be hidden or people know about them, but it's a simple yes or no. Managing others is draining and saps my energy. Is that how you feel? I raise my voice to remind the staff who's boss, to get respect and to get things done. Staff are doing less than me and not taking responsibility. Yes or no? I believe leaders and team members cannot be friends as it impacts on the business, including if I need to make some tough decisions. Yes or no? I feel like I'm struggling to keep ahead of the staff. Yes or no? So fingers and toes, maybe, or fingers and pen and paper. So what have you come to? So how many yeses have you got? If you've actually got more than 3 yeses, then potentially you're actually under some form of minor stress because it's saying that the culture isn't necessarily aligned. Now, we only ask 10 questions. When we're doing a review of an organisation to see how the culture is, or they've got some things that aren't quite working right, great team maybe, but maybe they want to jig it to get it working a bit better, we actually use pages and pages of questions. But we've given you just 10 so that you've got a bit of a rough idea. So congratulations for all of those people that have either got in the second quiz more than 3 yeses, or in the first quiz less than 7 yeses, then congratulations, you're in the right place. You need to listen. So square pegs and round holes. So you might be in a job, and this is another way of talking about subtle stresses that could be in your life or in your job. Square pegs and round hole, well, what does that mean? Well, you know, when you advertised or answered the job ad, you might have actually saw the ad, thought this is a great ad. Look, I can do about 10 or 20% of that. But in actual fact, when you get to the job, have you ever got to a job that wasn't exactly what the job ad was about? You found it's completely different. So then what percentage of that job is actually matched to what you were applying for? So you're battling to work in relation to that job. This is also to the case is sometimes the job's been advertised by an outsider and it's not even anywhere aligned to the duties or to your skills match. Also, You may have been given extra responsibility. If you've watched some of the previous TradeMutt podcast, you will have noticed that we talked about how people can be given extra responsibility but without the training. So here you are floundering, giving the extra responsibility, and also too, in actual fact, you haven't received the training to do it. And what about the fact is we've got COVID-19 here now, and many people just saying, look, I know it's not a match for me, but honestly, I don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth. I'm just really appreciate the fact that I've got a job. And that's right. So what we'll talk about today is ways that you might be able to sit a bit better in that without affecting you emotionally or mentally. So workplace culture could be a mismatch. So one of the things associated with that is that, did you realise that organisations have their own culture within them? So there's a clan culture, which is a bit like a family culture where there's nurturing and everybody does everything collaboratively, and it's more of a friendly work environment. But what happens if you're someone that's really structured and someone who likes order, who may have come out of the defence or would prefer to work in a structured, orderly fashion? Then you're really suited to a more hierarchical culture organisation. So you could be working completely the opposite without realising. Then there's also to a marketplace culture, which is a bit more like they're going for goals and for recognition, and they're about achieving certain sales targets. And then there's also to the fourth culture, which I'm not even bothered to mispronounce for you. So it's actually about being entrepreneurial. And so it's about everybody's got to be really active, we've got to be really creative, and we're creating new solutions. Now, you could be sitting in a cultural or an organisation that's completely different alignment to how you are. So then there's the next stage, is there's something called catastrophic churn. Now, this actually doesn't work well for anyone. This is where people have got into jobs, the jobs are misaligned, it's for other reasons we will go into shortly. They've been under pressure, the job hasn't worked out, and what's happened is we've got a high turnover of churn. By the way, just a sub note, if you're someone that's got a business, you can actually use churn to your advantage, but you have to be clever the way you do it. Talk to me later on if you want to know more about it. So the average cost of hiring new staff, as these stats show, is that it can be up to $5,000. I think that's a very conservative estimate, because I know I was recruiting hundreds of people out of the bush and it was very difficult and very expensive, and the turnover of the staff was quite high with the organisations that I was working with, and so we had to work different methods with that. And I don't think 5,000 is enough, but anyway, it's reported there. And also too, they did a study in relation to business review, and they revealed that in business, up to 2.5 times the salary of the employee is the actual cost. So a salary of 50,000, as you can read here, if that was a mismatch or a bad hire, potentially it's $125,000 a year it's going to cost that company. Not counting the fact that if you've got churn, you've actually got lack of, you lose intellectual property, there's a whole lot of training, so everybody else gets extra burden because they've got to do them. If you're one of the existing staff, also too, you get, churn is really bad in relation to, for those that are victims of it, but also to those who witnessed it. So the credibility of the organisation goes down, the actual team spirit goes down, you lose knowledge, you lose time, you lose profits. At the same time, you have high levels of anxiety because people have to take on extra workload. And as well as that, you also have an increase of risk. That's workplace health and safety risk, but also too, you've got inexperience. And I can imagine, having worked out in the Pilbara, when you've got a case, even with support organisations, the mining companies have this down really well, but with support organisations that are feeding into their high turnover is actually quite a risky business. All of these things are minor things, but added up together, each one of those impacts on the culture of the organisation and on your well-being as a person in that organisation. I use an analogy that if you've got a teaspoon of petrol and you put it in a diesel motor, it's fine. In our body, we can put up with stress, little bits of it. But if you keep putting a teaspoon of diesel into the engine, even though it might take quite a lot of time, petrol into a diesel engine, over a period of time, gradually the car starts to perform less and less well, and then eventually, as the portion of continual misalignment in the job role, wrong culture, the way you're treated, etc. All of those add up. So they in turn impact on your ability to be able to cope with stress and also on you emotionally. So it's a big thing. So self-care, it can come out of your job role, can create stresses and impact on your care. It can be out of an organisational type, as I said, and it can also create a toxic environment. An example with this is, you're probably all too young to remember DDT, but toxicity in an environment, or a teaspoon of petrol, it has an accumulative effect. So it just a little bit today, and then you have a break and go to a different job's fine, but then you might have a whole lot of it, but it's still accumulating and affects you. So self-care is one of the most important things. Many of you people that have actually listened, no doubt, whether you're from an organisation, you want to do better with HR, or you're a manager rather than an individual, you'll be looking at this from a different model, but you've still got the same thing. One of those organisational cultural things that many organisations miss out on is that they don't necessarily recognise mental health. So someone that's got a mental health situation and a lot of pressure, that there's still the stigma, or somebody's actually saying, no, well, you know, someone who looks fine, or maybe we don't hire them because they've had a crush injury. I classify mental health, or these little pricks of pressure, as brain crush injuries. Now, they're not outwardly obvious, but I have worked as a volunteer AMBO, and I do know in another state, and I do know that a crush injury is often more serious than an actual break. And so you can be walking around with a crush injury, a brain injury, as a result of this continual input of stresses. But the culture of the organisation is such that they don't recognise it. As far as they're concerned, you're well. So know yourself, look after yourself, make sure you care for yourself. So one of the surprising things about this is how much it costs us per year. And that's the cost to workplace culture. Look at the amount there. I don't need to read it out to you, but I'm going to. 543 million paid in workers' comp, just in work-related mental health. That's every year. It's astounding. I want you, by the way, if you're someone that's listening and you have actually had a mental crush injury, or the circumstances have led that you've actually been put under continual pressure, don't take that as your fault. But look, you're not alone. It's not something that's rare. It's something that has now become so common that people are being damaged and hurt and injured, and it's not being resolved. That's because of workplace culture. So let's move along. One of the things is poor culture, workplace culture, doesn't happen overnight. As I said, it's an accumulative effect, and it comes over time, and it's normally gradual. And so you can be working in an environment that might start out a little bit unusual, things annoy you a bit, but it doesn't happen necessarily all of a sudden. What can happen though is you become accustomed to it, and you don't realise how unwell you're becoming. So one of the key things is know yourself, which was under the self-care banner. What's that saying they often say? I know you've probably heard it a million times. You know, insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. This is where I'm going to call you to think about change. If you think, oh yeah, it'll be right. Yeah, she's right. Oh, do you know the hardest thing the last 40 years I've been working with organisations and people getting the work right is them to actually admit they're sick, because the culture is saying and not accepting that there's an illness. So how well do you know yourself? And if you don't know yourself really well, then how could you possibly work out how to actually assist with improving workplace culture and making a difference in other people's life if you don't even understand yourself? I'll give you an example. So let's look at how you communicate and how you like to work, the way that you like to function. What about how well do you know yourself as to what your preference is in relation to communication, and also to how you like to interact or relate with people? I'm going to use the whiteboard. I hope the back of my hair is looking okay.
Looking fantastic, Leanne.
Oh,
great, mate.
Thank you. So here's my personal cheer squad in the background there, so I don't feel like I'm talking. It's really hard to keep the energy up when I'm just looking at a screen. I do care for you all. So let's just use an example, and I'm going to do this really quickly. And for those that are on a phone, you're somewhere going to have to find a way to see this later on in a replay, so it'll mean more to you. So I'm going to just draw it quickly. I'm not really super good at drawing. We're just going to use this as a divider line. And I'm going to say, what's the difference between extroverts and introverts? Okay, everyone knows, yes, extroverts are really noisy and introverts are really quiet. But let's understand, how much do you understand yourself? It's about energy in actual fact. So let's just say this is the divider line. This side is talking. Let's look at how it's different. And this one, I know, I can't really draw a brain, but could you say that's a brain? So I'm never professed to be an artist.
That looks like Ed's brain.
Shut up.
Have you got a brain injury?
Yeah, keep going.
A flash injury. So this here is an extrovert, let's just say. So how would an extrovert like to communicate? Let's use the example of a meeting. So this is the talking side, this is the thinking side. So we're going to have a meeting on the talking side, and an extrovert comes into the meeting. Extroverts don't need notes in advance, and they're all on show, so they like to do lots of talking. Extroverts actually think externally. So when they hear themselves talking or they're bouncing an idea off someone else, it's like someone playing conversational tennis. They need someone to hit the ball back, otherwise there's no game at all if they're not playing conversational tennis, which is the name we've coined. So they'll do all the talking. Then what will happen is the extrovert, they'll go out of the meeting, they'll think for a short time, then they'll pop into someone's office and say, oh, what do you think of this meeting? Oh, and then they'll pop back and think for 30 seconds maybe, and then they'll go and talk to someone else and say, oh, I've just been thinking. And then they'll go back to their own office, it might be the weekend, and they'll think about it, and then they'll go and talk to someone else. So in the meantime, they're going backwards and forwards, thinking, talking, thinking, talking. They actually think externally, they get their energy from other people. So then we come back into the meeting and they'll do more talking. So you can see how an extrovert works. Let's have a look how an introvert works. It's meant to be an I, talking side, thinking side. So an introvert, by the way, has a tendency to normally get the information in advance so that they can think about it, and they tend to be a little bit more structured. Not always, but I'm just going to use a generalisation. Don't shoot me, but I have to do something to be able to talk to so many people. So we've got a meeting. We're going to talk about it. So an introvert will go into that meeting, normally sit quietly, what they will want to know, by what time, to what degree, what quality, what's the deadline, what's the standard. Then they'll go out, they'll go into their office or quiet place, they'll think about it, then they'll come back to the meeting. So an introvert is someone that actually thinks, needs the quiet to regroup. An extrovert gets their energy from other people. Now, which one are you? Now, you'll be a combination of both, because I'm quite high level extrovert, but I need times so that I get so much energy, I need times on my own. So you'll be a combination. But put these two people together, and if the boss wants to give you the instructions and talk for ages and ages, and you're someone that just wants the exact specifics, can you see that communication could be different and there could be a mini conflict between you? So how well do you know yourself? There could be some stresses going on between you and your teammates. So how well are you communicating? What about the other thing? How do you like to gather information? Guess what? We haven't got a rubber. So that'd be great. So how do you like to gather information? Are you practical or creative? And can you imagine how difficult it would be for someone that wants something in interpretive dance and someone who would really like something structured? What about the case of if you were making decisions? You're making decisions, what if it was analytical? So you go on facts and figures, but then the other person you're working with is someone who says, well, no, I don't care what the figures say, I believe this. So it's a beliefs process. So therefore there's a mini conflict. So how do you communicate effectively? You could be causing frustration between each other, and all it is about understanding each other's best preferences. The next thing is what about if you're structured or flexible? And I'll just give you a quick example because I'm conscious we're probably running out of time. So flexible and structured. Let's just say that you've got I should put a line there. Let's just say you've got a project. This is the start of the project. This is the finish of the project. And you've got a period of time that you've been given with a date. This could be anything that any of you do, whether it's a truck driver, a childminder, anything at all. So if you're structured, you will probably break that up. If you're a student, break that up into sections. You'll say, I'll get this bit done, I'll get this bit done, and you'll have dates here. And just so you'll have a structured way you like to have it done. Once again, generalizing, using the extremes, but yes. Now, someone that wants flexible, they might, and many of us know someone like this. This is the finish and the start. So what flexible will do is, I've got heaps of time. So what I'll do is well, I've got this weekend, and so I'll do a little bit, but then I'll go along here and I might do a little bit more. And then, I've got a fair bit, but I've got heaps of time. So I'll just work it out, and then I've got a bit more time. Oh my goodness, it's getting close now. So now I'm going to do a whole heap, and we're pushing to get it done by the deadline. Now, if you're working with someone who has a structured process and is worried about the flexibility, worried about the finish date, and they see someone who's done nothing, you could see that that would be enough. I could just see two tradies working together, and one's got a contract out and he's worked it all out. He's working in this line, and someone else is saying, oh no, look, I'm fine going out with the mates. No, we'll get it all done. They might have to work till midnight, and sometimes they're going right to the wire. But yes, imagine the stresses that's causing. So how well do you know yourself? That's an important thing to relieve stress and interactions between people. That's what organisational culture is about. It's the environment that you're growing in. Is the organisation helping you? Do you understand yourself? How are you impacting on the productivity of the other person? Are you creating stress and you're saying, but they do it all wrong, it should be done my way? That's fine. Good luck with that one. So one of the other things is communication. So we talked about this roughly in relation to how you present. Do you understand yourself? What about team culture? Now, one of the things is many people actually consider have conflicts with other people because of lack of communication, lack of effective communication. So, and this often happens between leadership. Over the years, I've heard so many people say, oh, you know, I've got these difficult conversations, or I haven't been able to get through to them, blah, 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 blah. Well, maybe they don't understand, in actual fact, the differences in communication with extrovert or introvert. But one of the key things is actually creating the organisation and leadership is changing the thought process. You know, you could think of it along these lines. It's actually one goal, and you need to realise whether you want to work in this team or not. So part of an organisation's culture is about the attitude of leadership to team members. Now, we have found, and also too over the years, have found the most, you know, what's that saying? You attract more flies to honey than you do to vinegar. If you're actually working cohesively and you create an environment where it's more like we're part of a team, and that the leader is the coach, the mentor. They don't have to be the specialist. You know, most of the world famous tennis players don't have coaches that were previously world famous tennis players. They're people that observe the way they move, they watch, and they also to have different skills. So leaders are there to empower their team. Think of a coach now, when you've got a team, let's pick footy. I'm figuring most Australians know whatever the shape ball it is, it's still footy. So in the case of where you're a coach or a leader or a manager, because I define manager and leaders differently, if you've got a group of people you're responsible for, then you are like the coach. It's not about you bossing them around. You know, your audience, your clients are the ones sitting in the grandstand. They've come to see professionals play. So if you think that in a case where you're not able to communicate effectively, there's disagreements on a site, just translate it. The days of autocratic authority where you boss everyone when there's so many choices is actually gone. That's a different style of leadership. It's a very old style of leadership, and it's creating untold, as we saw, amounts of stress. Conversational sports are the things you need to get really good at. Think of yourself as a coach. If you're in a leader position, think of yourself as a player. You respect your coach, you look to their wisdom. They know different things. They're not a specialist. They're not the person who's going to be throwing the ball or kicking the ball through the goal. They're the person that's going to work best in looking how the team functions. Remember how the best coaches go. They look at those that have the attributes to be in a certain position. They look at those that come to practice. They look to those, and they're the best friend. They don't criticise or ridicule. They actually build and bond the team to work effectively together. They also recognise at the beginning of the season who's in. So before the game and the season starts, before you recruit, you actually talk to the person to say, well, why are you joining the organisation? Your values might be aligned. We know that you've got the skills, blah, blah, blah. Is this for the resume? Is this for experience? Is this because you're waiting to get to another job? you actually have those sorts of conversations like a coach would have, so that you know in advance when this person is going and what terms they're being hired under. And you thought, I know, but in actual fact, it works extremely well in you being able to take advantage of a variety of skills. So, and it's an effective thought because it's been working for quite a few decades for large organisations. So being a coach means also that if someone says, look, the coach can come up and say, look, you're not playing a good game, that's okay, you sit on the bench, but you're important. That person actually cheers the team on. You never hear a high professional team that's on the telly or that you're watching and you're paying money as a client to watch. You never hear them bickering about their teammates and pulling the team down. They're one. And when somebody doesn't do well at the job, they praise them and recognise them. Just imagine what sort of culture your organisation could have and how much better you'd feel if you were on one team with your coach, with the cheer squad on the side there, cheering for you, with your players that are sitting out, knowing that this guy is only going to play for this season and he actually, and we've had this discussion before, there's many footballers that have transferred to a different game. So what's the difference in this situation? We're in this together. And one of the great things about Australians, we can do this really well. So one team, one goal. So you level it to a level playing field. Everybody is equal. The coach has the authority, but the coach never uses that to put you down, to embarrass you. You've got one goal: to entertain and supply services, in this case with football, a really good game, so that the clients in the stands, the audience, are paying for that. That's the same as your clients. You've got the same goal. So when you're coaching for your team, you're coaching them to victory as an organisation. You're wanting to infuse the cultural thing. You're allowing for someone to say, look, coach, I don't want to play next season. Look, I'm no good at this particular position. Can I try somewhere else? Or the coach is, oh, I've noticed, come in for practice and we'll practice on this thing. So it's one team with one goal. If you find that you or someone else are actually pulling the team down, white anting is the saying I would use, undermining the culture of the organisation because you're not happy, two things. The white ant is going to get poisoned or eradicated eventually. But the other thing is the team themselves are destroyed overall. If one goes down, you all go down. So that's part of strengthening the culture, is what the leadership is like and what the way you present it. By the way, a coach has no difficulty when talking to a player that's not playing well, as sad as the player is. They understand the coach has the best interest of the overall team, and it's not because that person has been victimised or being treated or inefficient or failed. So let's go on. So one of the other things that's really important, we've put them up here, but I'm going to skim through it, is making sure as an organisation that you enhance the team dynamics, that you give people positive feedback, that you have that coach cheerleader mentality, that you build trust so that people aren't anxious, and that you build a safe place for people to say, look, coach, look, boss, I'm just not doing well. Look, that you put me in this position as the leader and I can't quite do it. That's the neutrality you want in conversation. No more industrial relations, because you've got a trusted relationship that started from recruitment, from advertising in actual fact. So it's actually about, if I can ask you all, when you're in a situation of conflict or something that's not working, then see how you feel. Are you feeling like you need to one up or power over, or you want to, they make you angry or they make you anxious? Recognize your emotions. Recognize that that can be the trigger in you, that you're actually not in a good place. So let's go on to what it might be like lizards at large. Now, this is a subject that I brought up with Ed and Dan, but I just want to say, I'm going to do it again. This is a toothbrush exercise, okay? Because this is something that you're not used to doing and you've fallen into a pattern. And this is a big cultural issue, that it's a very simple thing. So what's happened is we use the analogy of the frill-necked lizard. Now, for most of you know the frill-necked lizard from the funny stories, and I apologise for that's heard it again. I heard the story before, but I just want to keep it in mind, is in our brain, there's a small, very primitive part of the brain, a big long name, don't really know how to say it, let alone anything else, but it's in there. And it was actually designed in our makeup so that when there was a saber-toothed tiger, we were smart enough to know, to run. So that brain is still with us, and it also too gets escalated, and it's always looking for fearful things. Now, I want to explain what a frill-necked lizard does. It's only got 3 methods of behaviour. It's the only one of its kind in the world, which I'm really pleased that we've got our own little frill-necked lizard. And it lives in northern parts of Northern Territory and in northern parts of Australia and Papua New Guinea. What it does is it's always vigilant. It believes it's going to be eaten. It doesn't really have any great defences. So it's actually camouflage, brown in Northern Australia, red, you've all seen the red desert ones, brightly coloured. And what it does is it's always in a tree in a place of vantage, looking out for danger. It assumes everything is dangerous. And so when you come up to the tree, it will actually very cleverly put the tree between itself. So when you walk around the tree, the lizard's on the other side hiding. So it uses camouflage, and it also uses hide and avoid. The next thing is if it happens to be caught out on ground, which I'm sure many of you have seen the photos, is it actually will then fluff itself up, and it will bluff its way through those circumstances to try and get you to go away. Now, I don't know if you realise, but there's a pretty good analogy. If you're working on a construction site, let's just say, you could have someone that actually hides in their office, doesn't come out to the site very often, so they're doing the fluff, the hide and avoid. Too busy in my office, can you stay away, make an appointment? Yeah, ring me on the phone, and they don't answer it. So they can use the hide and avoid because it's too much hassle. There's another way too, is they get out in construction site and they can do the frilly-necked lizard, the overreaction, the bluff. Don't hassle me, I've got things to do. So they use you'll see them, they can actually do it frilly really well. They can do it well if they're sitting, some of them are really skilled, they can do it when they're sitting down. So what happens is you actually see them puff themselves up, they make themselves bigger, put their hands on their hips. They'll often open their mouth like a frilly, be really exaggerated, and they'll also too be loud and animated. So you're rushing around trying to do something, so you don't question their authority, and then they're off again. So then what they'll do is if you stand still with a normal frilly, it will actually then figure, well, I can't bluff you, so what I'll do is I'll run, and they'll run to a tree to higher ground. Now, in normal terms, if you're on a construction site or you're in a business or you're in an organisation, that run and hide means they actually go back to their tree and look for higher ground. They'll try a few other tactics. If they can't bluff you, what they'll do is they'll actually use it with a method of, they'll discredit you to other people, or they'll talk to the boss, you know, such and such, I told them to do this, this and this. Now, they're primitive lizard or dinosaur brain thinking. The reason why I'm giving you this example, when someone is doing a lizard on you, avoiding you, doing the big bluff, threatening your job, or threatening to wreck your reputation to someone else, can you just think about how comical that looks? Can you also see that they're using an old-fashioned, primitive way of resolving problems? It actually is laughable. So what I'm trying to get you to do is when they seem big, like a dinosaur, and remember years ago they used to call it the primitive brain, the dinosaur brain. Can I just empower you by saying you're actually dealing with a little lizard who's got no real mental strategies other than the reactive mode. I hope next time you're not disrespectful to your coach or your boss, but the reason that we give the lizard analogy is to empower you so that you don't have to fear to speak up. You don't have to overreact or shiver in your boots. You are within every right to speak up for yourself. If you felt you've been bullied by a dinosaur, just remember it's your lizard brain, yourself, putting it out of perspective. There are no longer anyone else. It's illegal to constructively dismiss someone, so understand your rights. To constructively dismiss is bully you and actually manipulate you, give you so much work that you eventually quit. All of these are stresses. So I move on very quickly. So let's talk about taking action. So you've got a couple of choices here. And what I'd like to do is present to you that if you're someone that is working in a situation where you're fearful to speak up or you're fearful to talk because of the reaction of the lizard, brain, thinking, leader, person or office, there's no need to be scared. Shrink that down. You have every right. And remember that when you go up and speak to the lizard, not scare them, not be rude, but just stand your ground. They'll normally run away. So as time goes on, I'm hoping you can use that as a comical way to give yourself confidence. Many of you will have lost confidence because of poor treatment. It may not be of work, but we're talking about work. And so that's impacted on your ability or your confidence because someone seemed like a dinosaur to you. This impacts on your ability to respond. So once again, it's the culture. So what I'd like to do is also talk about, for a corporate setup, you can actually put a couple of things in place. With organisations and businesses, one of the things about frillies is they're often very successful. They often get promoted to other jobs and people say, how the hell did they, how did they actually get that job when they did so lousy and all these people have died and all the good people have left or died mentally or had brain injuries or been crushed by the horrible critical way that they work with people. It's because they're actually utilising the knowledge of the team. It's not the case in all organisations. Please don't think that's the case, but you need to understand communication needs to be open. So we're trying to eliminate the fear in your brain so that you can have these straightforward conversations with other fellow human beings, your coach, the person that's responsible. In an organisation's case, we're going to suggest, why don't you just have a few policy and procedures and follow through on them? Frillies hire other frillies, so don't have a position of somebody that's where people have reported the individual or have said I can't communicate, or you've seen in your own evidence that the person, whether a leader or in the organisation, has been behaving like a frilly. Remember that frillies breed fast and they hire quick and they like their own kind. So the other thing, an organisation needs to tread carefully around frillies because often they can bluff even the committees of management or boards of management. You can't hire me, I'm going to sue you, blah, 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 blah. Remember the shoulders and the money and the threat and the higher ground. There are better ways to do it. And a level playing field or conversations, you can eradicate that. Better from the setup that you don't hire them. If you manage the moments, not the policy and procedures and practice, many people do policy and do performance reviews, really short, really long stretches of time and not brief, short meetings. Please don't someone tell me, oh, I don't have time on construction sites. Look, I've worked out in the bush and I've hired and had to work with allied health professionals. They're driving 10 hours out to a clinic. They don't have time to have the sites there. But not 3 weeks ago, I was talking to a gentleman who owns a huge construction company in central Queensland, over 300 staff. And he said exactly the thing that I did with a smaller group of, I don't know, 100 or so, which was, there are times where you can get to know that staff member and talk to them and understand how they're going. Simple things. You get to know the foreman and just have a conversation. Look, there's dead time where they're driving between one job and another. You can actually be doing a job and you can be working beside them. Why don't the two of you work together and just talk while you're doing it? I used to sit in the car and travel with them 10 hours down to Birdsville. You can imagine in 2 cars, I get to talk to 6 or 7 staff. And then when they're in the clinics, I could talk to the actual clinics and find out how the service was. I also saw them work. So there was a whole lot of incidental stuff. Those small bridges of conversations and spending time with people, you're modelling and teaching those people what your standards are, that you do care, but you're following through on the practice. If someone was not behaving or already had a relationship, if they were breaking the rules, whether it be a sports rule, remember the coach always has good rules, and the game is better with rules. The same is with when you are dealing and having as an organisation. You can't afford to have frillies. You have to adopt a no frilly rule. So what next? Let me just check how much time we've got. What's next? So the next bit, so I'm hoping I've talked fast enough to get through this, and I am just skimming across the top, as I said. So I hope you're still going. You have to play this 6 times. So what options have you got? Are you staying or leaving? Is the organisation not a match? No one's communicating. You're feeling really bullied. So let's have a look at what the options are. Let's start with you decided you're going to stay. Now, the first thing is okay, so you got a brain injury. You don't realise it. And so you think you're thinking straight. I just want to tell you, 40 years, I haven't found anyone that's been under in a high pressure job. And I'm not anyone super special in the world, but I've seen lots of people that are trying to make judgments about a job or how to handle things, and they won't take the time off or admit that they've actually been damaged to the stage where their petrol tank has been filled with diesel or their diesel engine's been filled with petrol to the point it's not functioning. So it's the same in a work situation. So Another option, so make sure that you take some time off, make sure that you talk to someone about it. It can be a mental health professional, it can be someone in the organisation. In the EAP capacity, I do not mean staff or your boss. I actually mean you need to have a rest. You need to take some time off because you won't be thinking straight if you've got an injury, or if you've been running on empty, or if you've been using the wrong fuel, or you've been dealing with what you thought was a dinosaur and you've been crushed with the weight of those emotions, when really you're not seeing the dinosaur as an actual lizard doing a bluff. So get some support. Be fully committed that what you want to do is you want to change, and you be the change you want to see. Okay, right now, a lot of people want to stay in the job. So let's talk about making it so that you're in a situation that you can do more than survive, that you're going to work on increasing your relationships, how you take it on. Now, I put a great book in there. As I said, all the books that I've recommended in the list are ones that are really quick reads. It's a really fantastic book written by a Queensland guy, and it's got caricatures in it, so caricatures or cartoons in it. I find it an easy read. It's got some great tips. And it talks about you accepting, okay, if the job's not suited, how can I make it better? Also, too, there are things like many organisations pay for employment system plans and employment assistance or support programs, which the organisation pays for, but they're mental health professionals. Also, you could see a mentor, or you could ask someone to assist you to gain the knowledge to be able to communicate effectively, or you can also ask people to support you when you go into meetings with your employer. If you're not certain, all of these things, you may not be thinking quite strongly enough. You may have been damaged or feel you've been mauled by your lizard when you thought he was a dinosaur, but he's done a bit of damage, so, or she. So what you need to do is maybe seek some professional advice to actually find out what things are you really good at. I also know that the only reason that the organisations have been so successful, once people have been brought together as a team, taught the flat structure, taught the communication advice, look at a match between the organisation's culture and the individuals, then put people where their strengths are, that those organisations that were already doing really well have now become outstanding organisers. You just need a professional. If you actually want your back realigned, you don't go to the actual gardener in the yard. You actually need to go to someone who knows specifically about that. Make sure that when you're hiring a professional, there's someone that's actually done the job. They've got the really great U-Butte website. They've actually got experience in doing it. And you don't go for long contracts, you go for set things. By the way, there's heaps and heaps and heaps of professionals that do amazing jobs in helping people understand themselves a bit better, assist them. And one of them, of course, here is with TradeMutt. They've got an ability here to be able to help you for the referral to TX, where you can actually get a professional to assist you on the strategies as to how to talk to someone that you've lost confidence to talk with, and also to who else to refer you to. So there are options if you want to stay. So then if you're deciding, okay, this is all too much, and you want to leave, once again, do not make a decision about leaving until you've taken some time. Talk to a professional. There are plenty of free ones, which I've just mentioned. And also too, I notice on TradeMutt's website, they've got other options as well. Not your best mate, not someone at work. We're talking about a professional here. So then also to get assistance in relation to helping the communications run smoothly, because you want to know how long do you stay or not go, how you're going to do the handover, and you want a good reference. You know that can happen if you have those conversations, even if the person is a dinosaur in your mind. So seek those, and there's plenty of specialists to help with recruitment that you can get free, and there's plenty of free advice on the web, etc. So I suggest also you will be really skilled at lots of things. You've just lost your confidence and can't see it. So let's go on to the next bit. So within an organisation, that culture can also be something that you can work towards overall. Decide on what the organisation is going to do. A quick fix or a better fix is to actually have someone come in from external to internal, because then you can all go through it, the leaders and the people organising it. And also too, often a skilled consultant can give an assessment and they can assist you. Don't forget, consultants don't have to do the whole work. You can say to them, look, I want an assessment, good ones. They'll give you the details and then they'll let you do it yourself. Or they'll train you while you do it yourself. Or they'll come in and do it all for you. There's options. Just be a little bit conscious of how you want to do it. Making sure that you've got a level playing field, everyone feels comfortable, there's no pressure. You'll be amazed. Some amazing ideas come out of the frontline team that are actually very clever because they've been doing the work. And if you create a situation where they feel safe to give feedback and you'll listen, just want to remind you, remember the iceberg? There was a question that said, oh, it's no point of saving anything. The organisation culture, everyone had decided because the boss never listens. Here's a case where you as a corporate organisation or a business actually listen. And sometimes, if you can create a safe place, the most recognisable height that you've reached, you'll know you've succeeded when they actually tell you you're doing a crap job, but they still want to support you. That means you're an amazing leader if you can take that feedback, because the two of you can then work towards improving it. So, in relation to free resources, I think is the, oh, sorry, my apology. This is what you're looking to get. I know that if you're on a phone, you'll be just about blind trying to see this because this is impossible. So you have to get to a computer. But this is where you're working towards as a team. This is the things in the 6 human needs in a work site to create the perfect situation. It's very easy to go from a dysfunctional team to a functional team that's working in synergy and having this amazing environment where everyone supports each other. They cheer from the sidelines, even if they're sick, if they're not even playing, if they fall down and they do a crap job in something they're doing at work, someone else says, that's okay, we can do this. And the boss realigns them, puts them in a new position and says, hey, look, I don't think this suits, but let's give you a reference over to this job. I think this is a better job for you. All of those markers there. This is a very easy to achieve thing. Put the team together. You'll be surprised how quickly this all folds on and creates a beautiful environment for everyone. That's fixing a culture that's gone skew-if. So, free resources. There's a couple of links there. One's to our page because we've actually got a culture meter. If you're not certain and you've maybe been lying in the ground and been a bit poisoned, and you've been doing that for quite a while, or you've had a crush injury and can't think properly, the culture meter might just help you. It's not rocket. Well, I was told not to say it's not rocket science, so I've just gone to say it. So
now you can say what you want, Leanne.
Yeah. Oh well, I'm trying to work on. In fact, I'm a bit rough around the edges with some of my sayings, so just thought, I do want to say that the most important thing is if you're someone who's blaming someone else, just remember there's one finger pointing at the other person, but there's 3 pointing at yourself. You actually need to work on your own attitude, otherwise get out of what you're doing, get help to get out and start again. So I'm going to hand this over now because there's questions and answers, no doubt. And I'm hoping that's been helpful. I sincerely wish you all really well. I hope that's been of benefit to you. It does my heart good to hope that maybe those of you that have got an organisation that's maybe not firing on all cylinders, that you can realign it through your own help. Those that maybe have had a bit of a crush injury, really, really hope to encourage you. And those that have felt overwhelmed and bullied by what their brain has said is a dinosaur, but it's really a little lizard, someone behaving in an old-fashioned primitive way, I'm hoping that's helped. So, questions?
All right. There's one here from Anonymous.
Anonymous.
All right.
Goodness. Anonymous.
How can I initiate conversation with my manager about poor workplace culture?
Oh gosh. I'm going to give you a standard answer, but you can always talk to me later because remember that there's a whole lot of complexities of relationships behind that. If it's safe, because in some cases, some lizard brain thinking is so entrenched in the person that's a leader that they could actually eat you alive and dismiss you and those sorts of things. But if it's safe, then go up to them and say, look, something's not quite working. I'd be talking 100% from the heart in your own mate's way. If it's got to have swearing and it's got to be whatever else, fine. Whatever is normal talking, but check your motives. If your motives is, I actually want to work here, or I actually don't think this works, then get yourself in a position where you can stay there no matter what they say. And if they say, can you just imagine them as a lizard running off with it up to their tree? It actually will help you realise and not take it on. If they're doing the bluff, just think too, it's just a little frilly doing a bluff. If you walked forward, they'd run. So I genuinely believe that most people don't know how to have conversations. I don't know if that's answered it, but I'm, anonymous. If you want to ring me somehow or send me anonymous and give me a bit more detail, I can give you more specifics. But I believe that, there's something on YouTube, Greg Hayden, I think it is. There's a 16-minute video on, I think it's Manifestation, it's called, but I'll give them the link. It actually talks about the magnetism of the heart and the brain, and it also is steeped in science, and it does say that in actual fact, if your internal self is balanced, you can talk, not in a soft-soppy way, if that's not your way, just in your normal way, but if your motives are based around your heart, not your head and primal brain fear, that actually magnetism from that is 5,000 times stronger from the heart than it is from the head. I know that sounds like airy fairy sit under a triangle stuff and dangle crystals, but in actual fact it works.
There's another one here.
That was a long answer, wasn't it? Sorry.
Okay, so Jess Bailey says, is it possible to turn a white anter into a positive part of the team again?
I tried one of these. I always believe in the person. I believe that people get these habits because they've been mistreated, and so it's a defense mechanism. I'll tell you what, you nearly ate a hole in me. Yes, if they want to, but it takes a lot of time because they're actually got a habit. And so white anter is someone says, oh, such and such did this, or oh, such and such did that. I would say that it's not healthy for you though, because you have to be super strong and be able to take, you have to be able to absorb, you have to not be able to absorb it, but still love them for where they are and think one day you might help. This white anter had a decision about managers and actually hated managers. No matter what I did, she was referring to how she was mistreated before. So she was using an old story that her old dinosaur was, everybody was a dinosaur that had the word manager after that. She was such a skilled lady, but she was burnt. So the answer is most times no, because it's really, you can't really change people. You can hope to influence them, and you can hope to create and cultivate a climate, a culture, where they feel relaxed enough to tell you what the real issue is. But I don't win. I don't win every time either. But what hurts me is that person's hurting that they're like that.
Leanne, one more. I've got a question here from Angela Anonymous. That's anonymous.
Oh my goodness.
How do I know if my career fits my personality type, and how can I help to identify what I'm good at?
Well, that's
a multi-layered question.
It is a multi-layered question. It's easy. You can actually, there are analytics that you can do. Some people call it profiling, but you can find out about it. Now, there's some on the web, but I do want to tell you the really good ones are ones that actually cost you money. And there are some that you can do on the web that are free, but they're not specifically about work. They're actually whole of life. You need to make sure that you do one that is work-based related, is accredited through an international global psychological society, because it's going to have a component of psychology, but you also need to get one that is work-based. Now, that in itself is a skill. I do want to say that you've asked me a question I'm a bit biased in, because I actually got my girls when they were, who are now in their 40s, to get my girls to actually go through when they were at school to work out where their natural strengths were and which tendencies, which jobs they'd be better suited, so they were working their sweet spot, and both of them are amazing. Not that I'm biased. Every mother thinks their kids are good. So profiling. or analytics, and also you can get some basics, but you do need to work with a coach. They'll do it pretty easily, pretty quickly. I'll put my hand up, but this is not a job spruiking situation here, but that's one of the things I'm qualified in.
All right, we've got another one here, Leanne. It's from, there's actually a couple more juicy ones here.
Right,
yeah. Lucy, she said, do you have any experience or advice on implementing a social contract in a workplace?
Well, see, I'm not exactly certain. The word social contract.
It'd be more like our office charter, what we've got on the wall right there.
Do you mean, yeah, well, Lucy, if you're not an anonymous, do you want to, can someone just privately?
Yeah, I can connect. We can connect.
Yeah. Lucy, we actually offer it. Anyone who wants to have a quick chat with me for 20 minutes, I do it free anyway. I couldn't probably offer it to everyone here. Otherwise, at some point, I'm going to have to pay a bill. But Lucy, I can probably give you some information. I just probably need a little bit more from you, because I'm giving general. Remember, I'm giving this as a general skim across the top, and I really worry that someone's going to say, oh, no, that's not right. In that circumstance, it mightn't be right. But I might be thinking, I might be talking about an apple, and you're thinking of a banana.
Okay, we'll link you guys up. There's a couple more just quickly.
Yeah.
Maria, she says, how do you initiate a healthy workplace culture, specifically to certain employees that are struggling and feeling anxious without making them feel like they're being targeted?
Has to be everyone. A workplace culture is the whole team, and it needs to be brought together as a team. One of the things I've been doing the last 40 years is hired to go into teams that aren't necessarily, some of the teams working really well and others aren't. Has to be the whole team. That's how you do it. And you can also use simple things, like you can do, not surveys, you can trace people, but you can have suggestion boxes where people can put ideas for improvement. You can have an award for the best improvement if they don't mind putting a name in it. If it's anonymous, that's fine too. Creating a neutral place. The fact that they don't want to talk about it could actually be, I'd be looking at your own organisation's culture there, because everyone should eventually get to the stage where they feel they can comment and everyone's happy for them to agree but disagree.
Okay, beautiful. And then we've got Andrew. He said, what do you do if you like your job, however you find it is not challenging and becoming boring?
Yeah, so that's sort of not really liking your job. Then if you're on your own, whoopee, you can change it. If you're working for an organisation, then what you do is you could go to your employer and say, look, I love the job, I'd like to do this here, and it's a really sweet spot for the employer or for your boss, assuming they don't have a lizard brain, assuming they're actually working with a human brain, then what they'll do is they would then in turn talk to the boss and say, look, this is what I'm really good at, this is what I'm assessed in, I'm actually finding it's a bit not enough challenge. Is there something I can do? And you could do a project or be given something in that role. And that's often, so long as you're working, there's some stats in this, you need to be working about 70% of your time doing things that are in line with your natural preferences, strengths, and the things that you enjoy doing. Otherwise, you've got pinpricks of pressure all the time. You can recuperate with about 30%.
Awesome. Okay.
How was that? Is that all right, Leanne? You absolutely nailed it. That was
great.
awesome.
So I hope that helps.
That was absolutely awesome. We absolutely love Leanne. She's a wealth of knowledge and super passionate, as I'm sure you can tell. So I hope that everyone who joined got a lot out of that. Everything that you could see this way was looking absolutely beautiful. Everything behind the cameras was a little bit chaotic. We've just been running in with some extension leads, batteries going flat, things going on everywhere, Zoom links. But we're very new to this, but we want to be able to give our community as much as we can. One thing that I really took away from that was, Leanne, the analogy. When you point the finger at someone else, you've got three pointing at you. And something that we talk about a lot is taking ownership. As soon as you can take ownership of your situation, you become empowered and you can do something about it. Leanne, thank you so much. This is not going to be the last time that you see Leanne. Now, please, guys, we feel like we have got a platform where we can really help people. So whatever you want, whatever different topics you think we could talk about, let us know and we'll go and find the professionals who can come and give you guys as much education, information as possible. If you've got any more topics that you think that Leanne could specifically address, please let us know. We're happy to do this again. Love your work. It's going to be available on YouTube. And of course, if anyone is struggling in their workplace and wants to chat to a mental health professional, we've got the TX Foundation downstairs. As we say, whether you're a tradie, truckie or blue collar worker or a supporter or a loved one of any of those people, please don't let it get any harder. Text or call. This is a conversation starter on 0488 469 88. Look after yourselves. Another Toolbox Talk in 1 month time. Until then, one fig at the camera, 3 at you.
Thanks, Leanne.
Bye, everyone. All the best.